you live, from Accra to Lagos to New York to London or Glasgow, your monthly rent is perhaps your biggest monthly expense. And I think I see why the Bible says that, foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man had nowhere to lay down his head. No, this is a Christian joke. I hope you get it. If you don't get it, then forget about it. In my last video, I shared with you how I got the latest iPhone 14 Pro for £0. And many of you, have reached out to me to further explain how I went about it. And in fact, have reacted very positively to it too. Some have gone on to get, the 0% purchase credit card, and others have even switched their bank accounts to get higher interest paying ones. So thank you for that reaction. And if you've not seen that video, I'll put a link to it in the description box below. Do check it out. There's got many nuggets that you can take out of it. So I thought in today's video, I'll share another interesting life hack, which I live by here in the UK. And that is how I pay £0 for rent. Yes. And here I'm not talking about something illegal or something immoral, I'm not talking about, living in an RV or living in your car or nothing like that. I'm talking about how I live in a 3-bedroom semi-detached house for £0. Stay with me. Like many of you, the first time I moved out of my parents' home and was required to pay some form of rent was when I went to university. And it wasn't fun. Well, not the university part. I absolutely enjoyed my time in university, but the part about paying the rent, because I had to pay a year's advance for the rent. And that was quite a huge sum at the time. So that part wasn't, too easy sometimes. But even more recently, a friend reached out to me that he's got a job. And that was great news because he's been job hunting for the last 2 years. But the crazy part was that his job is in Accra and he was expected to pay 2 years in advance rent. And so he reached out to me that, Shadrach, this is crazy. The system is broken. How am I supposed to come up with, 24 months of rent when I've not even been paid 1 month salary? So, I asked him for further details and he told me, yes, the rent is 20,000 Ghana cedis. I don't even have a dime. How do I pay for that? Until I told him that, well, 20,000 cedis is a lot of money, but that is my 2 months rent. He wouldn't have it. He actually thought I was joking until I actually sent him, an extract of my bank statement that showed, how much I paid for rent. He was not having it at all. But for those of you in London or Greater London and around, that will be your 1 month of rent. Yes, it's absolutely mental. Do let me know in the comment section where you live, where you watching from, and how much is your rent. What proportion of your salary goes into rent? And the story remains the same for many of us, regardless of where you live, from Accra to Lagos to New York to London or Glasgow. Your monthly rent is perhaps your biggest monthly expense. And I think I see why the Bible says that, foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man had nowhere to lay down his head. No, this is a Christian joke. I hope you get it. If you don't get it, then forget about it. Yeah, but the point is, your rent is perhaps more expensive than your food, for the month. It's crazy, but that is adulthood. Welcome to adulthood. So on that note, welcome to Diaspora Careers and Investments. My name is Shadrach, and for those of you who are new on this channel, I speak all about personal finance, how to make money, save money, grow your money, and enjoy your money. And in this video, I'm talking about house hacking, rent hacking, or however you want to call it. How you can live in your house and pay 0 rent, or how you can rent but pay £0. Let's dig in. For most of us, rent is our biggest monthly expense, and that could actually be the hindrance to your, financial freedom or building any form of wealth. Just yesterday, I was speaking to a lady off Facebook, and she was asking me to help her, manage her budget or run the numbers with her. Because even though she's working very hard, she's really struggling to put any money aside. She has no savings at all. And with all what is going on, it's really making her anxious. I think she was spending about 50% of her salary was going into, paying rent. She lived in the Red Hill area. Some of you may know that area, close to London. And by the time, bills come in and they call her from home that, your grandmother has swallowed a wheelbarrow, so bring money for surgery and all of these things, she barely has any money at all and was really making her anxious. So it became obvious that, where she was living was a bit expensive, so she may have to move out of that area altogether and come a bit up north to, say, the Midlands, say Leeds or Liverpool or even the Manchester area, or even move a bit more up north, come to Carlisle, even Scotland, because she's a nurse and she's already got her license anyway. So it should be easier for her to find a job up north so that she could build some savings. So that really is the first strategy, to relocate or to downsize. And I know this may not be for everyone. For some people, because of proximity to family or proximity to some essential service like their child's school, or, some reason they can't move out of their city. But perhaps you can move out of that neighborhood to a cheaper neighborhood, and that could save you, a few hundreds of pounds. Or, you could, depend on where you live. If you live in, a mansion, or, you could move to somewhere a bit cheaper, house share, and that could, reduce your expense or save you a couple of hundreds of pounds or dollars. So that is really the first strategy. The second strategy really is to stay with friends. And I actually got this idea from a book I was reading. I don't know whether it was Housel or one of the books here. And the book was talking about the power of relationships. And in that book, the author argues that if you have 52 friends who are willing to host you for a week each, you could live, without paying any rent and yet not be homeless. So you live with friend number 1 for 1 week, move to friend number 2 for 1 week, and then repeat the cycle every year. So by the time you come to friend number 1, it's already been a year. And yeah, but we clearly see the problem with that. One, it feels like you're taking advantage of your friends. And so, that fatigue can set in. What if you go into somebody and they're not willing to host you, or they're not ready, then that becomes an issue. And this lifestyle, this nomadic lifestyle, will not be suitable for most people. What if you have a job, do you keep changing jobs? Well, perhaps if you have, if you're working from home, then you can work from your friend's home. But that also will not suit your, your relationships, or, if you have family commitments. You can't be, jumping home to home with your, your wife, your children. You couldn't be doing that. So we clearly see that is, not a sustainable, approach. So yeah, but I thought it was, interesting and gives you something to think about, power of relationships. And I've actually done it before, well, not for the whole year, but I've lived with friends for a bit. When I finished my PhD and, trying to find a job at the time, I stayed with, Manoa, yeah, thanks Manoa and Ebo. I stayed with them for a bit and stayed with a few friends who, helped me for a bit. So I know what it feels, and the discomfort your friends would also, have to endure a bit, and it cannot be great sometimes. So yeah. The third option is to, flat share, or, to rent a spare room in your home. And this may seem pretty obvious, but if you've got, a 2-bed and you live alone, or even you live with your spouse and you have got an empty space, and you can afford to have someone there, then you can rent it out to them. In my previous video, well, a controversial video, I must say, I explained how I charge my brother rent, and some of you reached out to me that no, Shadrach, that model is not cool, but some of you also shared some very interesting thoughts. I'll put a link to that video in the description box below. Do check it out and do let me know whether you think, it was the right approach. But the principle remains, fundamental, that if you've got that empty space, then you can rent it out to somebody who would pay you, some form of rent. And then that can reduce your monthly expense also. The problem with this also is that there could be some personality crashes, that if you don't get along with the person, how do you deal with that? Or once you have a long-term tenant, then they would be entitled, they would have some rights, so that could also be an issue. Or even the space may not be that large, or, they are always in your space and that kind of thing. So it must be somebody you would be comfortable with, or somebody, or you should be able to, deal with living with other people. Recently, somebody reached out to me that they are looking for a 1-bed space, and I was like, why don't you go for a 2-bed and share? Because it's a bit cheaper, but also, it's easier to find. Like, nah, I like my comfort. Cool. You also consider how much are you willing to pay for that comfort. Are you willing to save, maybe £200 extra per month to share the house with someone, or you would rather, pay up £200 more to have your own space? I mean, that depends on what you want to do. But the problem with all of this is that it doesn't deal with the issue of paying £0. in all of these, it's reducing your expense significantly. Whether you are relocating, you are downsizing, or living with friends, that will still come with some expense because you don't want to live off that friendship, or even sharing your flat with someone. You still tend to pay something little towards it. So how am I really paying £0? And that is the juice. So that leads to my fourth point. But a little bit of story. After my brother moved out of his room or out of the house, I considered, what could I do with that room? Do I take another tenant and charge them, market value for it, which would reduce, my rent? But I was concerned, what if, I live with somebody and I don't get along with them and all of that, So that brought the idea of, short-term rent, or what is known as serviced accommodation, whereby you put an empty room in your house on, whether Airbnb or Booking.com or Verbo, and man, it is gold. And I ain't gonna lie, it is gold. Check your, go to, whether Booking.com or Airbnb.com or wherever, Verbo, and check your neighborhood, put in your postcode or your city, and check how much, a night rent is going in your area. Yeah. I'll put a link to all of these websites in the description box below. Do click them and follow it to see how much people are really charging for your area. And you may actually be surprised. Where I live, a night would go for, £40, and that's pretty standard. Sometimes 50, sometimes even more than that. If demand increases, the price also goes up. So you can even adjust these prices. And these are people who, need a place for a week because they are in the city for some short, for a conference or something, but don't want to go into hotels because it's expensive. And that is how to go about it. Assume you live, in an area where a night is going for £40, and your rent is, say, £500, or, of course, the more expensive the city, the more expensive a night will cost. So if you live in, so where I live would cost, you can get a 2-bed for, say, £600, and that is standard. But a night is going for, say, £40. So if you can get 10 bookings, in a month, that's £400. If you get for 15 nights, for 20 nights out of, a month. So that's even, if 10 nights are unoccupied, that means that you can even make £800. And that is how, you can pay off your rent from these costs. Yeah, after some charges, of course, it comes to, you earn about 700, but still that covers your rent. And that is how I live rent-free. Because I live in, a highly sought after area, I usually get these bookings come through, and they are really, it's been a lifesaver. I know there are some disadvantages to this also. There are some who want their space, but it comes to, the opportunity cost. How much would your space cost? Would you prefer to get somebody in for a few nights, for the month, and then, reduce your rent by half, or even pay it off in full? Or you rather want to have your space and pay the full amount? That is what it comes to. And also, for those who know me, I mean, my personality, that, I like to think I'm very warm, get along with people. And for my ministry too, it's really good for me to meet new people, speak to new people. I enjoy little chats and all of that. And that is the beauty about these short-term rents. People come in for a week, 3 days, 2 nights, and you can set it up anyhow you want. You can choose that, nobody should stay for more than 1 week. So if the person is staying for a week, your place doesn't show up. You can adjust the settings however you please. In fact, you can block some of the nights. So when I am traveling, I just block the nights. In fact, I'll put a link to my listing online, and then you can check it out. Or even book it, if you're visiting Glasgow. It will be nice to have you around. Do let me know. But you can adjust it to suit your needs. You can choose to host people back to back to back to back. Or you can choose to do it every other time, however it suits you. So when I'm traveling, I don't have anyone in the house when I'm not around. And that can be gold. Because, of course, there are some people who, if you're not around, they come to the house and they trash it, So I only host people when I am around. I live there, you wouldn't come and trash the place. But also it's beautiful to meet new people. I've had, black people come to the house. I've had Asians. I've had whites. It can be beautiful, Of course, the aim really is not to make friendship, but sometimes you meet some very nice people and, learn about some different careers. How, I met this woman who was a doctor actually, but she stopped being a doctor and she sells candles. Oh man, and she opened my eyes to stuff. Yeah, she was Nigerian actually. And in fact, the other beautiful thing is that people after they leave your place can actually rate it, can give you a review. And in fact, oh, I'm using the phone for the recording. So I would have, let me find out, I'll put up, some of the I've had. Let me actually pull up one and then read to you. This one says that Shadrach is an amazing host. The place has everything you might need and it's close to public transport. I would totally recommend you to stay there. So that is a good thing. Another person, right? It was a wonderful and quiet place to stay. Shadrach is a wonderful host and a very helping guy. I would definitely recommend this place to anyone who is looking forward to stay in Glasgow. Yeah. Somebody also says, very clean, spotless, newly refurbished house, lovely host. Actually, I'm looking for this one. There's this lady, good. I found it. Where do I even begin? I would honestly give this place 10 stars if I could. Shadrach was an incredible, helpful, and accommodating host, and the room was exactly as described. I traveled to Glasgow for one night for a very important appointment. My trip was derailed by cancelled flights and having to travel road, therefore arriving much later than planned. Throughout all of this, I found it very easy to communicate with Shadrach. He responds very quickly to messages and facilitated a later check-in. It was my first time in Glasgow and he provided me with guidance in terms of how to get around, parking and so on. The room was very clean. Shared kitchen and bathroom were also very clean. I didn't get to use the working desk in the room due to arriving very late, but it's a cute space for anyone who would require it. I would highly recommend this host for anyone visiting Glasgow and looking for a well-located private space with a host that is easy to engage throughout your stay. Wow. So, I mean, these are very positive comments. And so for me, it's also an opportunity to help other people who are visiting Glasgow to show them the city. And you don't have to do all of this, but of course, because, I tend to really enjoy, meeting new people, it fits my personality as well. So that is something you can really consider. And I could go on and on with this, Airbnb thing regarding how much I have learned as a person in terms of, managing customers, clients, being a host, cleaning, and of course you can use, a cleaning service. But in terms of managing a business, really, I've thought about all of this and I've grown into it. And I mean, I would strongly recommend it to anyone who wants to do it. And I know there are some of you who would say that, oh, Shadrach, maybe it's because you own your place and so you can afford to do that. Well, that leads my fifth point. You can actually do Airbnb or any of this even if you rent a place. Yes, I use Airbnbs as well. I've used Airbnb in Dar es Salaam. I've used Airbnb in Dundee. If I'm visiting a place where I don't have friends, another tip, when I go on holiday and I have a friend in the city, I would live with them or we swap. You come to me for 2 days, I come to you for 3 days. And then we host each other and reduce the cost. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I can go on and on. So I use Airbnbs as well, and I've actually stayed with a host who did not own their place, and this is how she did it. When she used to live in a two-bed with the friend, and the friend relocated to Hungary, so she had the empty space in the house. And rather than renting it out or searching for a new flatmate, in fact, she tried for a bit, but she couldn't find somebody to take the room. So she spoke to the landlord that I'm struggling to find a tenant who I can get along with to live with, but are you okay if I should actually, put it out on short-term rentals and I would deal with the customers, the clients, the guests? You don't have to do any of that. I just need your permission to be able to let it out, short-term to people until I find somebody who can, rent it out long-term and I can get along with them. The landlord was like, deal. As long as, you don't bring me issues, you deal with whoever, you are responsible, you are liable for anyone who comes in. And that's how she actually went into short-term lets. And oh man, soon things started picking up. And she's actually now replaced her rent with this income from the short-term lets. It is gold. That is how you can live rent-free. Of course, it is work because, when you have a guest coming in, you must be around to let them in and, deal with having, strangers, so to say. But come to think of it, who would actually go on Airbnb to find a place to stay? Of course, sometimes you can get, funny people, but I honestly would say that I've only had nice people. Because when I am going on Airbnb, I'm open-minded. You're going to live in somebody's house. You're not going there to make too much demands of them or be unreasonable. You are even grateful that they've let you into their home and will show you a few things. I mean, if I have guests who love tea, you know how I would abuse them, because I love tea and I have lots of collection. It's what they call a connoisseur, I'm a connoisseur for tea. So if you enjoy your tea, you are welcome to, join me. So if the person is hospitable and is nice, you leave them with a good impression and you'd always want to come back. So that can be good. So that's how one of my previous hosts actually replaced her rent with Airbnb income. And it's not just Airbnb. When I say Airbnb, I also mean Verbo, I also mean Booking.com or any other local website that you know of. It could even be on Facebook. I've seen people advertise short-term lets on Facebook. Imagine. Anyway, and you may also think that this woman was actually able to do it, and she was white anyway. She was able to do it because she had, a spare room. Hold on that thought. I've actually lived with a guest who had a 1-bedroom house. Oh, God. Yes, she had a 1-bedroom flat, actually. I'll not name the city. How did it happen? One of these flats whereby, there are these flats, what they call chamber and hall, whereby, you go through the, once you enter the house, you go through the hall or the living room before you get into the bedroom. Her flat wasn't like that. It was one of those when you enter, there's a little hallway and then the rooms are adjacent to each other. So you don't go through one room to get into the other. They are adjacent to each other. And what she did was that she put a bed in her living room also and her own bedroom. Each of these had beds. So essentially, when she has a guest, she lives in the living room and then she rents out her bedroom. And that is how she was living rent-free. Man, and she was a woman, a white woman, hustling life, 100%. What? I was surprised. So I thought that was quite interesting. And she also had a story for why she was doing it. And now she's absolutely enjoying it. I could go on and on with these strategies. In fact, let me give you one spare point. There are some people they call, I can't remember the name, but you can actually rent out a couch in your living room. There are people who would come and live in your couch for a night. And these are not hustlers. It's just a way of life, They're in the city for a couple of nights and they don't want to pay £40 a night for Airbnb or £80 or £100 for a hotel. They just need a place to crash for the night, So if you have a sofa or an airbed, they'll take it in the living room. As long as it's got heating, they are fine. And they will pay you £20 a night. In fact, I'll put some links in the description box below of various websites you can use for these. And that could save you 200, 300, or even replace your rent. Man, people get brains in this United Kingdom. So let me know wherever which other house hacking technique you know of or you have used. Which other means have you used to reduce your rent? Do share with me in the comment section. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video and it's giving you some ideas as to how you can house hack or rent hack. Thank you very much for stopping by, and please do like this video, do subscribe to this channel, and I'll share with you many nuggets. Look forward to my next video and stay blessed.